Hi, my name is Chris and this is Battle Nonsense. Today I have very good news for you, because we have received patch number 20 in the Battlefield 4 CTE for the core gameplay initiative. And along with the changelog for this patch, DICE also included a statement where they explain that they will now stop to include more features to the Battlefield 4 CTE, because they are now focusing on getting that patch stable and ready to submit it to certification, so that the patch can finally be applied and released to the public version of Battlefield 4. Now, if you're worried that the CTE is coming to an end and that we will not get new features and bigger changes for Battlefield 4, then I can tell you that you don't have to worry. Because it is perfectly fine and normal that a professional software development studio does stop to create new features and big changes at some point and focus on getting what they have already created into a shape where they can release it to the public. What this means now is that DICE is planning to release a new patch in the Battlefield 4 CTE every work day. So these patches will be very small and only include bug fixes. And besides these bug fixes, the developer known as Undead Pixels is planned to finalize his weapon balance changes by the end of this week. This means that his recent work is also meant to be included in this patch for Battlefield 4. Once there are no new issues found in those patches, DICE will put together a big patch for the public version and send it to certification. And once the certification is passed, the patch will be rolled out for the public version of Battlefield 4. What we don't know right now is if the PC probably gets the patch earlier, because there is no certification process as there is for the console versions of the game. I will try to find out and let you know. So even though we don't have a specific list of changes and features from the Battlefield 4 CTE which will be included in this patch for the public version, I think it is safe to assume that this patch will be a quite big one. Not in terms of file size, which could of course also be the case, but in terms of the amount of changes that will be included in this patch. So as I've said, you don't have to worry that the Battlefield 4 CTE will come to an end once this big patch is released, because we already know that the next initiative is already planned and will be about teamwork. In my previous videos I've already been talking about and showing you the changes DICE has been doing in the Battlefield 4 CTE. And now let's have a look at the recent changes that were done while I was on vacation, which hopefully also get included in that big patch for the public version of Battlefield 4 that should be released this fall. If you've watched any of my previous videos, then you know that I'm not the kind of guy who is just sitting here and reading you the changelogs like other people do. I believe that it is much more interesting to see the changes in action, and it also makes it easier to understand what a change is about. Let's start by having a look at the high frequency update feature. If you go to the gameplay section in the options menu, then you will see that for the high frequency network updates you have 4 different values: high, medium, low and off. The issue now is that off is the default, so people who are not aware of this feature do not benefit from the higher update rates. They do not receive updates more frequently from the server. In the Battlefield 4 CTE, DICE has now managed to automate this feature, so the client will automatically select the best rate for your client. You can also select on. This will force the game to use 30 Hz. And according to the changelog, DICE has also managed to get the high frequency update option working for the last gen consoles, the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. Some people have very fast PCs, and as a result they are able to arm the first MCOM before you are even finished loading the map. DICE has now added a ready state, which is inspired by what we've seen in the Battlefield Hardline beta. You need a specific amount of players on both sides to be ready to start the round. So once the amount has been reached, you can click deploy, and then you just have to wait for the countdown to reach 0, and then you can start to play. What I can also show you in this clip is the change DICE did to the footstep sounds in Battlefield 4. Now they are clearer because they changed the mixer settings and the volume for enemy soldiers' footsteps has been increased. So if you pay attention to your surroundings, to the footsteps you hear, and have a look at the minimap, then you know that what you hear should be an enemy player and can't be one of your teammates. Everyone who ever was a squad leader in Battlefield 4 knows this problem. You have an enemy in front of you which you want to spot, but because an objective is behind that enemy, you end up spotting him and setting a new attack or defend order in the process. Patch number 20 in the CTE introduces a new option which can help us with this problem. It is called context-based order giving. What this means is that if we set it to off, then we have to bring up the com rows to set an attack or defend order. So when I now tap the Q button on my keyboard, then I will only spot the soldier in front of me and not set an attack order on A. And to tell my squad to attack A, I bring up the com rows and select that order. I really like this little new feature. It makes playing as a squad leader much easier. Another little change I like very much is this one here. DiceLA reworked the hit marker and the blood splatter effects to show you how much damage your hit inflicted. Let's compare before and after. On the left side you see Battlefield 4 as it is right now, and on the right side you see what it is like in the CTE. As you can see on the right side of the screen, when you hit the player in the leg, then the hit marker is quite small, because the damage you inflicted is also quite small. If you hit the player at his hip, then the hit marker becomes bigger, because the damage you inflict is bigger. And when you hit him in the head, then the hit marker is quite big, because this does the most damage, and you will also see an additional blood splatter effect. What has also been changed is the blood splatter effect when you get hit in the head. It is quite hard to miss now. Per default, the HUD elements in Battlefield 4 are pretty big. Luckily there is an option that allows us to scale down the HUD. If you are like me and you want to have a clear sight on what is happening on the battlefield, then you will most likely also use a value below 50%. However, this then has the downside that the minimap becomes very small. As part of the UI changes that are quite massive in the CTE, DiceLA also included an option for us to change the size of the minimap. So we can scale down the entire HUD to 10% as I did here, and then bring up the map size to, as I just did, 200%. Which is quite big, but I just want to show you what is possible now. This is a feature I've been waiting for a very long time, and it is one of my favorites that DiceLA did in the CTE. As you can see here, the amount of customization options for the head-up display elements is just huge. What we sadly don't have is a preview window. This means that when you are changing something here, you don't quite know the outcome. I will do a separate video where I explain and show you what every single of these options is doing. And the last change I want to show you is also just something small that does not have much of an impact on the actual gameplay. But it is one of those details which I do really like in games. I like the developers to pay attention to some things and add them to the games, so the overall atmosphere in the game just becomes better and more realistic. So what am I talking about? What you can see here has been recorded on a public Battlefield 4 server. This is not the CTE. So we have an attack helicopter flying around here, and the trees and bushes, they don't really care. In patch number 20 for the Battlefield 4 CTE, DICE did change something. Let me show you what they did. Now trees and bushes are affected by the power of the helicopter rotor. A few people might say now, why did DiceLA waste time and resources to create this effect, when they could have instead used the time to fix one of the many issues Battlefield 4 still has? Something basic you have to understand is that in a studio you have different kinds of people working there. It is not like every single one of them is able to fix any bug that you give them. There are even people, in example from the art department, who are not into fixing bugs, they are into creating things. So if you see a feature included in a patch where you think that the feature is just useless and a waste of time, then it's not like 5 less bugs were fixed because of that feature. Based on what I've read, it seems that enabling this effect was as easy as just clicking a few checkboxes and making sure that the effect is working properly and not causes a high performance impact. In fact, it seems that it does not have any performance impact at all. In my opinion, this is one of those little details, those effects that help to bring the game world to life and make it more believable. For helicopter pilots, this now means that when they are flying at very low altitude, that the trees will bend away from them, so they are less likely to crash into them. And when you are on the ground, then you can use this effect to spot helicopters, because when you see that the trees are bending, then you know that a helicopter is near them. So there are really a lot of things you can look forward to receive in that big patch in fall for Battlefield 4. I will keep you updated about the progress of the testing for the bug fix builds in the Battlefield 4 CTE. And I will also start to work on that video where I demonstrate all the HUD customization options which I mentioned before in this video. If you want to reach me, you can do so by Twitter, Google+, email and on Facebook. The links are in the description. If you like my content, then please consider to hit the subscribe button and I might see you next time. Until then, have a nice day and take care. My name is Chris and this was Battle Nonsense.